It's very exciting from my vantage point to hear the different ideas, you know, the different words I catch as I walk around the room. You know, there's so many neat ideas. I just have this little slide up to just to continue to say we're doing so much at this city to measure and figure things out. If you remember Tom Hilton's exercising us through the comfortable walking distances, this is a little thing, and if you can imagine Santa and center court of a mall being where Main and Ligonier intersect, okay, give you a scale, the inner circle is only 500 feet, the other circle is 750 feet, and then 1,000 feet from that center is that outer shade area. That represents a 2, a 3, and a 5-minute walk according to Tom Hilton and other walking standards. The blocks you see with the letters are, does anyone know what those are? Parking lot. Those are the city's parking lots. So, unlike the mall, that you've got to walk outside probably that ladder shading just to get to see Santa, I give you a parking lot within every one of them. The convenience of that is pretty remarkable. The distance, time it takes you to get from any of my parking lots to where you want to be is quite phenomenal. We got plenty of it. But I want to show you this, that a lot of what Tom talked about at those levels, I've mapped and we're mapping and thinking these through at the little level here of Latrobe. You know, like we're trying to scale it down for our own selves and learn what we do. The boundary that you see is pretty much, for the most part, Nick's Main Street boundary. You know, for the most part, I have to verify, but that's sort of what we were trying to get for that. And I know there's a little bit of extra territory we include. So just a little thing, we're trying. I love hearing the things I heard. I've heard so many different words I was picking up as I walked around the room. So I'm really, really excited to allow the groups, kind of one at a time, round robin fashion, to report out about the good work you've been doing and be able to give us the kind of things we were looking for when we put this together last month. Any table want to start? Go ahead.
Our first goal was historic preservation of existing buildings and homes. Our objective would be to identify buildings, get accurate restoration, maybe these are action steps as well, and I'll blend them together. Get accurate restoration and preservation information, educate owners, identify funding, create a walking tour, and our first step would be to find a qualified person to identify 20 to 50 properties. We think there's at least that, and probably many more, as far as buildings and individual homes. Contact the owners, prepare an inventory of needs, group them into the district, identify sources of funding, and then prioritize the list. And educate the community. And you guys jump in anywhere that I forgot. And do you want to add to that I forgot?
No. What's really important, just a quick housekeeping, whatever you choose and would like to leave back, maybe in your table there was an idea you never really were able to get out, write it down and leave it on the table, leave that kind of stuff on the table, because then when we go back, Jared, to the office, and then we will work to get this in written form and flesh them out and integrate it. So don't leave the busy work or the notations you've made on your table go. I mean, feel free. Even if you wrote silly things about me or whatever, you know, you can X that out and leave it on there. We'll record it because that's helpful.
The second one we had was we need a marketing strategy to sell to business and to attract businesses and people to move here and additionally retain people here. The objective is to be able to employ and house people in the city of Latrobe. Homeownership is 100% homeownership as opposed to absentee rentals and things like that. And specific marketing efforts would
McManus and the county commissioner about that exact idea of Spirit Airlines. I said that he should send somebody to Myrtle Beach and to Orlando, talk to the Chamber of Commerce, and tell them how much we have improved their real estate market by what we have here, because there are people in Latrobe purchasing places in Myrtle Beach and Orlando specifically because from door to door, it's about 2 hours from the airport to when you walk in your door in Myrtle Beach.
That's awesome. We can't stress enough. As much of the stuff you accumulate at the table, you may have written down names and a little bit more fleshed out details. You know, try to, one person, make sure a lot of that gets put into a nice pile that I don't like put it into a pile when we're cleaning up later if we lose that, so that we can really record that. So I'm so afraid we'll lose some in that transaction. A lot of the takeaway.
Hey Alex, before you go on, their first proposal, would it facilitate the restoration and the preservation of these buildings by getting an historical designation? Is that necessary to do?
Yeah, sure.
And so that would be one of your first.
It would be part of the process.
To be open to the new tax credits that Corbett's ushering out, I think, are in June. Nick may know this better. You have to have a historical preservation plan or whatever district, and then the owners can apply for that tax, and you can leverage and get more graded. In the interim, Nick's being aggressive and trying to stop the bleeding and seeing what can be done, specifically on Mozart.
And just a quick funny thing on that. Some of you guys know Danny Charlesworth. He's an expat who lives down in Alabama, who's been doing a lot of neat things up there. He's working with us to write a grant proposal for the preservation plan. You know, so we're saying, okay, you really care about the town and you've done a lot of writing about the town. Why don't you just do the internet, research the grant requirements, and start writing it? And you can live here and you can help us get money.
Yeah, and Clinton Piper, who was here earlier this morning, that's what Clinton does, is get historic designations for buildings as an adjunct to his position at the Frank Lloyd Wright House in Falling Water. That's where he works. And actually, Clinton is the one that got this building designated an historic structure. So we have somebody available to us that knows the whole process and can make it happen.
That's a good name to make sure we get recorded.
We found out from our conversation with Rick that it's a lot easier to get a building designated as a national historic landmark as opposed to a district
Well,
such as
assuming the building, I just want to make that clear. I mean, to do it, a historic district requires an inventory of every building, and identification of the building, etc. That's going to be a longer process, and maybe you've already gone down that road, Alex. I was just suggesting that, and in terms of the Mozart Hall, that as opposed to waiting till you've established an historic district in downtown, if it's eligible for an individual listing, you ought to do it. And this building was, are you saying this building was an individual listing in the historic register?
Yes.
National Register, this was. And so
I have a $200 plaque out here that proves it.
there you go. The distinction too between what Jared was saying too is the state credits, Denny can speak to this, but the state credits are brand new. That law just passed. The federal credits are out there and have been out there.
The state credits are legacy of Tom Tancredi, local
There you
state
go.
representative who really had an aha moment growing up in Greensburg and then moving his young family out to Hempfield, that his children were missing a quality of life that he took for granted as he lived in the urban center. Became then an advocate for how to change the paradigm and fought tirelessly until his retirement to get that state tax credit. So really, if anyone knows the legacy of that law, it goes to Tom Tancredi. And it takes a long time to get some things passed, but it can happen. They all at your table. Why don't you can report out that? Jack, you the reporter or me?
Yeah, that's right. All right, so we focused on two different things. First of all,
Hey, Dan. Stand up.
all right, sure. All right, so we focused on two different things. One was first the restoration of the Mozart House, and then second the St. Vincent Trail. Both very big things. So as far as the Mozart House, we said first of all, determine if the city should get an interest in it at all. I mean, I guess I'm not even sure. We weren't even sure identify potential businesses who might have an interest in that trail. So obvious places are places like Joey's, of course. It's going to go right along the trail. But could we attract other businesses from other places in the area, maybe from Greensburg, some business that's willing to, or looking to expand and looking for good places to put it. So if we say there's a trail right here, you're going to get students from St. Vincent, from the community college, and you're going to be right on that trail, maybe that's a good place to put these businesses. So, so just thinking for 5 minutes, we could come up with a dozen places that might have an interest in that. But it's been pointed out that it seems there's no one in the city who has the, who's dealing with marketing the real estate in the city. I'm not sure that's what you said. So I don't know if we would do that, but to identify a person to take on that task would be a good thing.
Very good. Excellent. Again, as many other things you captured in that discussion, make sure it funnels its way out. The table over here, John.
And we asked Jeannie to report out. She gave it to me. She said she speaks enough. But I think we kind of focused in on the trail possibilities and connecting the assets of Latrobe. And when we look at that, we look at DCNR dollars and DCAD dollars that are filling a lot of this might end up back to Jeannie. That's why I asked her to report out. But let me talk about what we talked about. There's a lot happening regionally. There's been talk about the connection of the trail to St. Vincent's, municipalities around here, Greenways corridor. There's often thoughts of connecting somehow to Ligonier. Blairsville is along a major greenway. In our economic exchange day that Alex talked about, we talked about how do we connect regional entities. This is probably pretty far down the line, but it's something to keep in mind that there is a lot of trail activity happening around us. So we kind of went through that first, then realized that we need to really focus down on a project that you can do quickly and showcase relatively quickly. And it's really the signs we see around the room here today, the student work project. And we got into a discussion about leveraging various funding sources and tax credits and different things, but that's kind of getting into the weeds, I think, as far as what we wanted to do. So we laid out 2 objectives, broad objectives to get to. One is create a functional trail. We had some discussion about the difference between a functional trail and a completed trail. Functional mean that people are starting to use it, start to understand the concept of why you're putting the trail in, what you're trying to get to, and in connecting these entities. A completed trail is you may learn something as you put together the function trail. Maybe this segment worked, this segment didn't work, and before you put a lot of dollars into a completed hardscape, work it out with a functional trail. So that's kind of like 2 overarching themes, but we came down to the objective of creating a functional trail, and the other goal would be engage appropriate stakeholders. Engage appropriate stakeholders is probably first, and how we would measure that is number of stakeholders involved, measure the volunteer hours contributed and the value of those volunteer hours, the number of volunteers recruited, which is a little different than stakeholders. Stakeholders might be more organizations such as churches, business entities, that sort of thing. And then the number of municipalities involved, realizing that now you're surrounded by Unity Township and Dairy Township. Those municipalities might need to be involved. And you ask why? Well, when you get back to create a functional trail, you might have to go to the municipalities and obtain necessary approvals and permits. So that's an action step under that, create a functional trail. Goal. Other goals, to zero down on this project. Again, they might be able to get the functionality quicker. Whit Watts gave a presentation where he put down wool ropes in different intersections to try it out and see how it would work. Maybe that's something that you do first. Do some inexpensive painting on the intersections. And I'm running out of action steps for creating a functional trail. If somebody wants to jump in, especially you.
I just want to make sure I understand. So, John, you and I in the vernacular use the idea of a desire line. Were you saying, look for the desire line that's sort of already there? Because we know, Jim, as soon as you wait before the rails were pulled up, people have always been using it, but now are using it ever increasingly. But the step of, there's some gaps that don't work, or maybe they're flooding areas, or, so figure out where the grass isn't growing.
Yeah, and it's when we say trail, you also have to think about, it may not be, this is part of our earlier discussion, it may not be a real trail like we used to think about as trails. It may be an on-street trail or enhancements to the sidewalks. A couple of cool ideas we thought about is, when you walk through the woods, they paint the tree ahead of you and you walk to that. So on the sidewalks, a piece of marble put into the ground, etched, laser etched, that might tell the story of the town. So you'll walk from one to the other. What if around that we surround it with permeable concrete or permeable asphalt, stained with a certain color? So as you lay out, these are the hardscaping things that we might get to in stage 2.
Yeah.
So as you walk from one place to another, say Legion Keener Park to this Lincoln Avenue Boulevard, you watch for those signposts, which aren't signposts, because then you get into sign color that Vince talked about. These are something laid into the ground that you move from place to place. So that's kind of for the completed trail.
We also talked about the solar, if we could put solar panels and use that energy created to keep the trails melted in the winter.
Yeah.
Just ideas.
You know, we basically thought this wonderful plan is here. I mean, the footprint's there, the property is owned, the ability to connect this new trail that answers all of the sort of sustainability issues and walkable community challenges. I mean, it brings everybody from the Hill and McChesney Town down the street, connects them onto Lincoln Avenue, which connects them to our only small shopping plaza, which also connects to a very sizable park, which also, by going another block down, city-owned sidewalks, connects us to Creekside, which can connect us to Legion Keener. So the ability to make it a usable transportation alternative for all those folks that live on both sides of Lincoln Avenue, connecting them to businesses, McDonald's now with Latrobe Steel and their desires to beautify that side of Latrobe. It's a destination, but it's also a usable alternative method for transportation, which was talked about so much last night. But I think, that's why I didn't want to talk, because I can't stop. I just truly think that it connects all different levels of planning and will beautify the city so much. It'll attract folks just for recreational purposes, but in the end, as we continue with these advancements about health and wellness and movement, and then it provides, here's your bike trail, here's your walking trail.
And the last table mentioned, I think the last thing you said was someone to promote real estate. I've said this to Jared. Imagine being the realtor, taking someone past this on either side to show up a property.
Yeah.
I mean, these people will fall in love with this corridor, and then they'll see the property. And then if the realtors are educated of the connection, they'll be like, okay, yeah, how do I get to live near this? Is there something closer to it?
Yeah, and Pat had a great idea, and Jane also mentioned when she came into the city, she would come down Lincoln Avenue to get into town and just go, oh my gosh, look at this horrible, deplorable condition that across the street from Latrobe Steel is. I mean, it's decrepit. It looks like the slums.
Unfortunately, that's not City of Latrobe's property. So
But here's what Pat's idea was. She said, buy those properties and turn them into a little volant, or a little, have a, what do you call it? Little artist area where people could go and, like a potter or a weaver or this or that. Some little cultural hub that, you could go do a little shopping, that sort of thing.
What I love about that concept, and again, the challenge for us is to think beyond boundaries. One of the supervisors, that's sort of his area, Dave grew up not too far from there, and cares a lot about that part, of the town. So it'd be neat, again, it's a multi-municipal opportunity, especially that particular thing. I mean, they are our gateway, in a sense, from the main highway to get into this. And so, you know, to do all our end, but to miss the reality of what their first initial impression is, may be a challenge for us.
To summarize our table, I guess, I'm going to do the goal last, which I should have did first. It's a double-barrel goal to develop Lincoln Avenue Trail and connections to existing trails and community assets. Since it is a double-barrel goal, we kind of got into the debate, what do you do first? Or can you do them both the same? That's where we got into the functionality versus completed. Probably if you want to get to completed, Lincoln Avenue, which will take a whole series of action steps and maybe one key segment of it first. For functionality, there may be low-hanging fruit ways to make those connections without, you know, a lot of hardscaping, such as the signage. It could be just the pedestrian crossing signs that you can get from PennDOT for free. If you've walked and figured out where you want those corridors to be, just make sure that you have really good crossings on that with pedestrian crossing signage. So that gets the functionality at least.
We see it as a way to accomplish Vince's objective of beautifying, making it pretty, but the orange and black street signs, and it's almost like taking a blank canvas and starting and painting and making it so beautiful that it sort of spreads from just above Lincoln all the way down through the city and just connects. And
remember what Tom said? Tom said the center of our town was LES.
Yep. And there it is.
That's a takeaway that you all grabbed. I know for me that was a big aha. Obviously I was using the
One final thought, Alex, from the economic development standpoint, for the person who's trying to sell the real estate. As a Main Street manager, the first question I usually got from some business was, what's the pedestrian count, or what's the traffic count? It'd be great to be able to come back to them with the question, pedestrian or auto, and have both numbers. There's two types of business.
As we move to another table, some of you know this little trivia. The Smithfield Street Bridge in Pittsburgh, right? You can visualize it, has a higher head count than car count. It puts more people in the downtown Pittsburgh walking than it does driving. I don't know if that's still current, but it's pretty interesting, because that's looking at different. Why don't we do this table here? Thank you.
All right. We're
going to shorten you guys up, Jared. So.
Yeah, I'll be quick. I'm kind of talk fast. Okay, we have enhance, green, and complete the softening feel into the entrance of the city, and that can be a number of areas. But a fear of my life, because Kenny put this out with so much passion for the number one, is the Lloyd Avenue Gateway, to complete that. And the entrance would be around Country Farms initially, all the way to the bridge, where House of Hope Factors is moving into the Nature's Building. And then as we went into the objectives, Nancy stated to integrate that into Adelphi's greenscape right now, so to not have a divided house, to make sure that if this is going to move forward as a plan, it's married to what Adelphi is going to do. So now we stretch it further, so you sort of see like the entrance almost starting around Adelphi and then going forward. The third objective of that goal, to really have the whole thing together, was to do a welcome to Latrobe signage. I'm going to hold up real quick the signs that some of you may have seen, some may not have. These are three of the signs that the grad students had attached to the Lincoln Avenue Trail. We like the middle one, sort of a consensus, and maybe kind of take the trolley theme, kind of be integrated into that, and some of the other things that we have as well. But we brought up two that we can leverage, perhaps sort of tech students or college students with the labor too as well. So typical estimates that we have is around 10,000 for installation, but we think we can kick that down. And those would be three separate things. One obviously would be the first one would either be at the Women's Build Hope by the landscaping company, or at Delphi's Yard, or next to City Hall. Okay, and that's up for other people to decide. That would be the first one. The other one would be by the trail here by Weiss Furniture, and the other one would be 980, or is it 2 or 1? 982 by Sheets. So those are like the three main gateways. Right now it says, welcome to Latrobe.
Traffic law is strictly enforced.
And the green sign, it's horrible. It's like leave. So we've talked about that for a while. Also, within that goal, the fourth objective was to look at getting a certification for a what's called communities in bloom. Communities in bloom. Yeah. Communities in bloom. With the good work that Dan's done. How many totals do you have again? 12? 14. okay, we think we can get that certification. That leads into our next goal of gaining national recognition for this being like the town to raise a family. Okay, we're the most walkable, sustainable town, selling people on vision. In the busyness of Nick, Alex, and myself, it's so hard to control the message because you're so project oriented, you're so results oriented. But that's something we got to fix up. So the first objective is to finish the website, all the way from search engine optimization to really making sure that we're marrying vision to all the aspects and then linking to the rest of the community. So right off the bat, we've made some pretty drastic improvements to the website so far, but to really make sure we're talking, he said, hey, when you talk about the banana split, because he went on and looked and no idea what we're talking about because it isn't on the website. So it's in the first phase. We want to do better there. The second objective, national markers, we did one with banana split, but again, this is if we get it, control the message. And the third is have a marketing budget. I think that's sort of attached to what you guys are talking about too. Actually have a budget, if it means something, it's enhanced that way. And I think all the goals that were talked about are aligned with the comprehensive plan, so that's refreshing to hear. If you see this sheet, you may have looked at it a little bit. What we'll probably do is package everything that you guys said and then try to align it to one of these, or alter this a little bit. But these are the questions. That's kind of what we have so far. So again, controlling the message and making sure we complete the good work we started. And really quick, too, we are the first city in the country to do pervious next to trees stamped by a street. So that was kind of cool and to install the way it was. So hoping to keep that all the way going to the bridge, which will be replaced in about 2015 or 16 by now.
Any for table?
Table here has 3 projects, but each one kind of morphed a little bit. The first project was Mozart Hall, and along with the other group said, restore it and make it part of the community culture and activities again. And like I said, it started to morph because one of the first things that was apparent to folks is that you need more people in town after 5 p.m. You need Mozart Hall to be part of a package of downtown culture after 5 p.m. kinds of activities. So it's not just like dealing with one building, but it's trying to work on a package of things. There was a discussion about incorporating the Banana Split Museum into Mozart Hall, and I thought that's really cool. You not only have Fred Rogers, but you have banana splits. And people remember the banana splits? And I didn't, no, it's the ice cream trees. Pardon me, I'm not from Latrobe. It's the ice cream tree that started here, not the banana splits from Saturday morning. So, when you first said this is the home of the banana splits, I'm like, oh, Fred Rogers and the banana splits.
So how were the bananas in that name?
The thing with the Mozart Hall is what we discussed first was it's going to be it would be a massive project. We don't know what condition the building is in. I hear that the roof is leaking. In order to do anything with it and turn it into an entertainment center again, it would have to be brought up first of all to code, but also accessibility for disabilities. Right now, there's no way to get up to the second floor except through the stairway that comes down to the outside. So it would be a massive problem. The first step would have to be to have the building inspected to see what condition it is in, whether it is savable. The other thing that I did not bring up when we discussed it, I thought of it after we moved on, just an interesting thing. The facade of the building is what, to me, is historically interesting. Last summer we were in Indianapolis for a family wedding, and we were in the area that they had restored for the Super Bowl, for all media. And they had done many interesting things with old existing buildings, but a few things that they did. They moved historical facades, the entire facades of buildings from all over the city, and replaced them on existing buildings in the downtown buildings that weren't so nice. They brought these beautiful cast iron facades, and they built plaques on them
might be, you know, something if the building itself is unusable, tear down the facade, and let's get something else put up there.
That's what Renee was saying. She said she was in that building and she said there's really not a lot.
Just an interesting thing on the facade. The city of Lancaster did that exact thing on the King and Queen right in the center of town. They have a big convention center hotel development. They took the facade, capped it, ripped everything out down behind it because they always support on both sides. I mean, right up to the bricks. They took it right up there. Thaddeus Stevens has this historical office. They were able to figure out a way to integrate that into this whole thing. But just kept the front, fixed the front, and then built this hotel. Now, from the street scale, you see 3 stories. But then back behind, they go up 13. It's just amazing how they were able to do it. But it's just ingenious how the design was able to recognize the structural unintegrity of what was behind and the unsalvageability of it, but keep the skin of it.
There was a building, I was just in New York City last weekend, and there was a building there where they were going to tear this building down, and the historical people came in and said, no, there's too much history. So they built a building, they gutted it, kept the exterior walls, and built another high-rise right in the middle. It's really cool.
Well, maybe we could keep the second ward school and put the parking lot inside.
No, we need to keep Second Ward School because that was the first high school in Latrobe, and I think it's one of the most historically significant buildings in the town of Latrobe. I think it's very close to being adequately restored and preserved, and with the little bell steeple on it, it would be one of the gems of Latrobe if we would work together to protect. It should be protected. Another thing about Mozart Hall is that Latrobe Country Club originally had Latrobe Sportsmen's Association meetings there.
Oh, really?
So you should work with all the country clubbers because their country club began at Mozart Hall as Latrobe Sportsmen's Association. So there's also.
Hey, Jim, wait, excuse me. Jim, you keep shaking your head every time Second Ward School is mentioned, and we've had this discussion before. I still don't understand. I understand that the inside's been gutted already, correct? For the most part.
Kenny,
Mark?
we have a foundation that is coming apart. The building is gonna do this to itself. Once that foundation was ruined 20, 25, 30 years ago, you can't jack it up and put a new foundation in. That's the problem.
It's sandstone, right? Right? Isn't it sandstone, the foundation?
Or worse. Some of it's brick. It's coming apart.
Yeah. Let's pick another topic. Keep talking.
I have a rendering, I'll show you.
Okay, the second thing that the group talked about was Excel, but from the perspective of the Plan B, assuming that it moves on and the doctors move out. What is the alternative? What is the recreation of the downtown? And the discussion rolled in a couple of different directions. It rolled in that the community college is something to catalyze on, that there would be student demand that could go from housing, it could go to restaurants, it could go to unique shops. When we started to talk about unique shops in some clusters, people said, Ligonier is a model. We don't necessarily want to reproduce Ligonier, but we look at what they have. They have a compact core. They have an interesting mix of stores. They're doing the right marketing, and they're creating a perception that that's a cute little place to go to. Again, we came back to talking about residential down there, and we questioned how marketable it is because the statement was that there's a real, not perceived drug problem downtown, and people aren't comfortable necessarily being down there all the time. That's a matter that had to be dealt with. And all the way back around to, are there enough incentives for things to be done downtown? That the Masonic building is a model that you could look at to replicate. And we finally landed on, if there was one thing to be done to get something started, it would be one apartment building project. The steps would be to engage a private developer, get a key person involved from the city government or Latrobe Revitalization to get them through the maze of what it takes to develop that project. It would need the historic tax credits, and it would help to provide some marketing information to give confidence to a private developer that they could succeed in a business model with an apartment project. Then the third thing was the discussion started on Lincoln Avenue project, and I think one of the significant thing was that everybody at the table said, yes, the IUP student vision and plan is a good one. Then it started to morph to a greater, more global vision about trails and the greenways that have already been talked about. There was a lot of discussion about Oilhanna Creek and the Greenway corridor and promoting canoeing and kayaking on the creek. There was thought that in order to do something like this, you need a spearhead, you need a trail person. I think there was some discussion back and forth, this is a paid person or a volunteer, which led us into a discussion about volunteers and needing to recruit more. The same few people here seem to be doing all the volunteering, and there needs to be a mechanism to recruit more volunteers, to find those people, and part of the discussion was that an exciting vision, which is what Jared was talking about, could be the kind of thing that begins to entice volunteers to become involved.
Excellent.
The Troutman's building, my wife asked me to say this if I had the opportunity today, and it follows on Pat's idea. That's the perfect place for that kind of activity. I mean, you can put food in there, you can put crafts in there, you can put specialist stores, if it happens, in there, which would be a whole lot better than having it way out at the end of Lincoln Street. I mean, it would be here in town, and that's the kind of thing we need to drive people downtown, right? We need commerce, we need food, and that kind of stuff. If that works out, and Mozart works out, all of a sudden we have a downtown that has stuff for people to come to. So if that eventuates, it seems like that would be a really good use for that, and it also brings the businesses back into town. So
yeah, it's kind of neat. I'm not growing up here. It's just really interesting to first experience the Troutman's building, and seeing how it got repurposed when Plan A fell through and Troutman's left. And so, having the vision to go beyond your setbacks and move forward is a lot about what this is all about. The last, 18 hours, we began at 4 o'clock on Friday to begin with the state of the city and all the exciting things that are going on here, and then looking at what's happening from statewide perspectives. And many of us were mesmerized and captivated as a storyteller with a bunch of slides from another part of the state shared with us his experience, his personal story, and his wisdom of how to get it done, the can-do of what their small town was able to do. That shared learning led to a number of even email and Facebook and other exchanges last night that I was privileged to get from some of the participants and so forth. And of course, you all taking the time, some of you, to do both that and then coming with us this morning, getting some more information about what is the city doing, what is the comprehensive plan, what does it have in it, why does it matter, and then drilling down to this small discussion about the projects that matter most. For those of us who will have more of the charge of this, Nick and Jared and I, with the people we have the answer to, our councils and our boards, we'll summarize the things we've heard in this past short amount of time and develop a little bit of a report related to it to be able to share back with you. So it will be so important that if you don't have or haven't been able to find your contact information to us, that would be important to do that so we can have a way to report back. But I heard a lot of neat things. I mean, things that, and I give a lot of time thinking about, but I haven't thought about. I mean, just really exciting. Just this last thing about a trail coordinator. I already have a person figured out, and I wanted to hire for it, so we'll talk about it. We just have to get the funding sources for it, and I think the person would really support it. And so there are things we can do. We want to do this annually. We want to, once a year, pull the community leaders in from our community and maybe the surrounding communities. They certainly will always be invited from the county and get other perspectives as well. And just find out, are we all going in the same direction? This is one of the most cared about communities in southwestern PA. The passion for the hometown called Latrobe is run so deep, it's just incredible how much people care about the community. And I'm always moved by that. And it motivates me to want to get it done. So I hope this has been motivating to you to want to get it done.
At the highest levels, I'm not sure where Vince found his way to. Some of our people, Jim, I'm not sure if you have a summary statement or not. We're going to leave here in a few minutes, but before they go, anything to?
Well, I guess two things, really three things. One is, as we talk about corridors and apartments and things, I think we have to look at how does the Masonic building do it? They have 7 retail establishments on the first floor. They have 19 apartments that are always filled with the Masonic Lodge above. If you look at that building, talk about historic buildings, it's absolutely fabulous. That's 2 blocks from here, that they get it and they do it well.
And then remember, it opened about a year or so before the Great Depression, before the collapse of the economy. And it has been doing a sustainable business model since that time.
Right across the parking garage, it was closed for 15 years. The second thing that encourages me and keeps me moving, and I try to make every day a new day, is when I see young kids that I used to do back in the 50s, put their towel over their shoulder with their flip-flops on and walk to the community pool in safe neighborhoods. They go to a facility that this young lady programs with quality guards. That they know that once they leave their house, they can get there, they're in a safe environment, and get home. The other thing was unpacking some things out here. I think it was yesterday morning. My secretary's leaving me after 20 years. I hear these 2 girls talking. They're jabbing. I look up. They're walking in front of this building with their backpacks on. I looked. It was 20 till 9. They're walking to LAS. So they leave their homes. They feel pretty safe. 20 till 9, walking to their school, and we have an excellent school system. If they go to LES, the center of the universe now, I think. But the parents feel confident, the students were happy, gibbering away with the backpacks on. And I said to myself yesterday morning, and this thing, that's it. And that's what I do.
Can't lose that. Vince or Rosie is kind of summary statements to wrap things up.
Well, just echoing what Jim said, that the climate is set. All of the pieces are in place for the first time in many years. So there's no excuses not to turn ideas into action at this point. I was standing there thinking of how much time you've all devoted between last night and tonight to do this, and we thank you a whole bunch. And so it's your energy that we hope is now going to translate into action. And so what we're going to do is try to take what you've told us you think is most important, prioritize it, and then identify the people to make it happen. We hope you're going to be some of those people, to repeat myself. And really, we're in a good place.
Rosie or Kenny, as elected officials,
Just echoing what Jim said about how safe this town really is. My grandsons, age 10 and 7, when they come to Latrobe, it's like Eden for them. They live in Charlotte. They don't go anywhere without their parents or something. They actually can walk from our house over to my dad's by themselves, and they find that thrilling that they can actually traverse this neighborhood by themselves. And it's so true that this is a safe town. I'm getting a little choked up here.
Yeah, because it matters.
But, it matters. It does. It really matters. And we got a good thing going here. And, keep it going. We need money. We need money. That's the bottom line. We need money.
One of the biggest privileges I have is getting to work with the police. And last night when I went back after here to my office to do some things, get to talk to the guys. I just love it. They're a good group of guys. There's every day they put their life on the line. Unfortunately, we had that Westmoreland County we lost an officer just a few miles north of here. But we do have it. And
and it's kind of laughed at. You know, the township has state police, and who needs local police, and you don't have that. And we know there's perception of drugs, but we're proactive with the drug dog. It's amazing. I like to joke. Somebody can be really stupid. They'll face an officer who has a gun, a taser, and a billy club, and want to fist fight him. Maybe two officers. But the dog stands there, looks at them, and they put their hands. And they put their hands up. And I'm thinking, wow, my guy didn't have to wrestle anybody or chase anybody. The dog just stands there, and he's massive. And they all of a sudden get really smart. They just like get gradual level thinking, and they're like, okay, I get it, I'm done. It's a dog. But anyways, we do have a safe community. And they do work hard, and they're 24/7. So just thank you for reminding of that, because that costs a little money. And how do you pay an officer? That's what always kills me. You know, the NHL just settled the NBA and that. How do you pay an officer? So they're paid, but they also do good work.
The only thing that I would add is you know, let's keep the energy going and get out to the community. There was a lot of people here in the last 2 days, and let's keep talking. You know, let people know, you know, how you spent your Friday night and Saturday morning. And because you know, I think Latrobe's a diamond, and I just think it's got a lot of potential to shine, and we just got to get our message out there. And I think word of mouth is the best.
That's the final word. Rosie just committed to you a challenge to tell 2 to 3, 5 people what you did. There are many more who weren't able to be here. Many more who maybe didn't get invited, unfortunately were overlooked, and it's just hard to hit everybody and let them know how much they matter, and we do want to know what they think. But you can do that for us. You can commit to say, I will talk about this with my small groups and circles of things, and it won't be just, let's just all pile on, government's no good, and a bunch of yahoos doing this, and when they got to get it right. You know, I just take up Rosie's challenge and commit that to you. You've been most patient, more than gracious. This is just the beginning. We have, in about 12 or 14 months, really turned the corner. The pieces are in place. There's no excuses to not next year when we have our second annual kind of leadership gathering, that we won't be able to report back the incremental and maybe a bit of substantial changes that we were able to make even from this night. Okay.
Alex, I have a couple closing comments. I too want to thank everyone. This is my 3rd month on the job here. I'm sure most of you know that. Something I want to do, working on the volunteer side, the gentleman who I used to work for would break down the theory of working with volunteers in a simple say. He would say, and I mentioned this during my interview for those of you who interviewed before, it's the 6-pack pass. And you can generally get people to do stuff for you in whatever regard. You give them a set time frame that they have to do it in, and what that's going to be. Open-ended asks, forget it. They don't work on the foundation side, they don't work in the real world. So any advice I give to you, if you wish to take it forward with any volunteers that you can engage, think in terms of a 6-pack task. If you need maybe Alex or I, Bear, or Vince or somebody, or Jim, to break that down, let's do it that way. I had a recent meeting with our promotions committee, and I told them it was my intent to break things down on an event basis in an Excel spreadsheet for use of technology. Who's going to do what, when are they going to do it, those types of things, information that's available through PDC, which is very helpful. But if you can break it into those little chunks, it makes it way more manageable. And as I move forward, something is very clear to me, I'm absolutely going to need Alex and Jared, everyone's going to need other helpers to package these things, to help us get these promotions done, to help us do the most of it. All of that is going to be very important, and we need your help. We really need your actionable help. Pick something you like, something that's got a set time frame. I'll be out by July 2013, whatever that may be. I think that's very helpful to know, because when I get asked to do something on a multiple basis, I'm like, look, how long am I committed? Am I on this forever? No, I don't want to be on there forever. I want to do things that mean something. Obviously, your community means a lot to you, and it means a lot to me, and working for you for that purpose. So think of it in those terms.
I think Vince put a sign-up sheet. Is that what you got going on?
Yeah, it's floating around. Parting thought on Main Street, something I drew for Alex when we were in Pittsburgh together. Thoughts of turning Depot Street into a 2-way street, closing off Main Street from just over the bridge up to Jefferson, and making that a parking lot with a skywalk over the park. And then turning
glad I came for this reason only. You clarified what is meant by a six-pack tax. I've been giving my volunteers six-packs. And they don't get anything done. No, seriously, I just want to take a moment to say two things. Lots has happened. I know Rosa said this before, but so much has happened since Alex came on board in the city. His leadership, his energy, his enthusiasm, a love for what he does. He's a visionary. And I think he's stimulating so much in this town, and we're so fortunate to have him. And then the revitalization committee, if that's what you call yourself. I always say it the wrong way, but how wonderful your work has been, and thanks for hosting this, because it has been inspirational. I think we had a great turnout as well, and some great people who also have a lot of energy and a lot to give. So I'm looking forward to working to see that come to fruition. So thank you.
I trust that, like Jeannie, that was your experience. You're dismissed. Thank you. Again, there are evaluation sheets that if you could fill those out, sign-up sheets as well, and a few bottles of water and donuts that get started into lunch. Thank you.